Hi everyone. Today's subject is the definition of the word Quran and other words related. Quran, as we said before, comes from the root word qarana, qarana, like put together or join. The fact is that Quran consists of two parts. That's why God called it Quran, something joined, makrun in Arabic. Those two parts are, and it's explained, and you can you can detect and you can get that meaning out of the verses of the Quran itself when you're reading it. The first part is preserved tablets, which means al-lawh al-mahfuz. The other one is the clear register. In Arabic, al-imam al-mubin. More other terms and words mentioned in the Quran, like the book, al-kitab, the pronunciation, al-dhikr, which is nutq al-ayat, pronouncing, reading while saying, while citing the verses, and then the narrative, al-hadith, and the clear book, al-kitab al-mubin, and the criterion, which is al-furqan. And we're going to explain each one by itself. These 7 terms, majority of Muslims consider and believe to mean the same thing, which is the Quran. That is, Quran or clear register or preserved tablet or the book or they all mean one thing in their mind. It cannot be. Why? Because God doesn't, that's not the style of the Quran. God doesn't use one word in vain. If God used the clear register, he meant it to be other than the Quran. If he used preserved tablet, because he meant it to be other than the Quran. And we will see consequently in the course of our explanation. Now this would mean that Allah not precisely did describe or indicates one thing in many words, while we can easily find to each word different meanings and identification throughout the Quran, and we're coming to this now, as I said. First, the preserved tablet, al-lawh al-mahfuz. It is like a heavenly constitution fixed and showing the firm organizational laws of existence. That is the Quran. The laws of existence. This is the Quran. Quran means something predicted, prophecies. So this is like a scheme to these laws, as in verses 21 and 22 of Surah 85. Verse 21 and verse 22 of Surah 85, it says, this is a glorious Quran. Talking about this part, the Quran, not the whole book. The whole book means the book, or al-mushaf, mushaf, from side to side and what's in between. So this is a glorious Quran, while citing the creation and all those objective verses about universal natures and laws, objective laws, that is. So this is the glorious Quran inscribed in a tablet preserved. It means existed before creation, which means God have this ahead of time of creating, which means these are the equations, the formulas, the power, the whatever you think of, that upon which God Allah created the universe and all creations. This is what the verse means. So each word is in a particular verse, and we can understand it accordingly. They don't all mean one thing. So the second is the clear register. The clear register, in the course of reading the book, I mean reading the verses of the book, we can understand that it's rather a human archive since man was created. That is, in other words, the historical human events as groups and as individuals. From the beginning to the end of times, as we can read in verse 12 of Surah 36. Verse 12 in Surah 36, it reads, "Verily we give life to the dead, and we record that which they sent before and their traces. And all things we have recorded with numbers in a clear register," which means as if, we archive files and we give each file a name, whether on the computer or on our cell phone or even in a large register book as it was before the technology got us here. This is the clear meaning of it. Third term, that is the book. Now everybody knows what the book is. The book, we can associate it with so many things. We can associate with so many things, like we can make a phrase, we can make a sentence, anyway. So the word book or the book in the Quran came in two different meanings as to the contextual issue, depending on the sentence. One meaning is multiple terms of subjects revealed to the Prophet in form of verses and surahs from Al-Fatiha, the first surah, opening of the book, to An-Nas, mankind, the last surah of the book, known as At-Tanzil al-Hakim, what was revealed, but in a certain way. In Arabic, it's called At-Tanzil al-Hakim, which means it came down as we download something on our computer, okay, which is the wise download. Meaning the whole book we call Mus'haf. That's what I said. Mus'haf, the whole book in Arabic, Mus'haf, or Al-Kitab, or Al-Kitab, containing the prophecy that is. So this whole book contains the prophecy, which means the objective laws of nature, of physics, and so on, upon which God created the universe and everything else. So this book contains two things: the Quran, which means those verses of objective laws that I talked about, okay, of creation, nature, physics, and human, and the oft repeated opening short verses of the Quran chapters, which means what we call in Arabic السبع المثاني, like Alif Lam Mim, Alif Lam Ra, Kaf Ya Ha Ain Sad, for those who know the Arabic or who read already the Quran. Okay, so this is the part of the Quran which contains the objective laws plus those short verses that nobody knows yet what do they mean or if they symbolize anything. The second part is the message. The message. In the first part, they were the prophecy of Muhammad. The prophecy, which means Muhammad announced certain things that nobody knew or nobody will know, and so on, about creation, and as I said, the objective laws of physics, etc. We're trying to discover. The second one is the message. The message, that is the verses containing Allah's commands and recommendments, well presented and explained in detail, known as Ummul Kitab, the mother of the book. So the second part, it's the mother of the book, which means the core, the let's say probably the most important, that to identify the message of Muhammad, why Muhammad came on, was chosen as a prophet to announce those objective laws to us, plus to give us guidance according to God's instruction, to give us guidance, commandments, and recommendations of so many things, which called mother of the book. Now, so we said there are two parts in the book. The first part is like we said, the objective law. The second one is the multiple verses of the message defined in a different verse elsewhere as ayat muhkamat, which means verses of legal contents, fixed like law. Now we pass on to another term, which is the pronunciation. The pronunciation in Arabic is al-dhikr. Al-dhikr, when we mention something, how can we mention something? We mention it by saying, pronouncing those letters and words put together, and they became like phrases and pages and so on. So this is dhikr. Okay? Now, this dhikr is nothing written, it's only recited, cited or recited. Okay? So it's the spoken or pronounced linguistic formation of all verses of the book. This is what the pronunciation is concerning our subject, which is used to worship and comply to Islam, which means talk about instructions of verses, of ahkam, of commands, and etc., which God, Allah, promised to safeguard, as in verse 9 of Surah 15. God promised to preserve al-dhikr. This is al-dhikr, which means God did not promise to preserve the book, because the book is physical, papers and printed inside, and words black on something like white, etc. God didn't promise to preserve this because then there was no such thing. We only have those papers like 300 or 350 years after Muhammad that those things of pages and papers and printing or writing on, etc. So they were using primitive things, but the main mean was to memorize and to write down on whatever piece of wood or piece of maybe skin, animal skin, or even a stone or something. They were putting it down in writing, but mostly it was memorized. So this is why memorized, then you can cite and recite. This is as dhikr. God promised to preserve it in this way, which means gave the potential and the ability to many companions to do so. Plus the writing that Muhammad commanded in his time that they would write every verse, every surah, and so on. So the verse 9 of Surah 15 said, "It is we, Allah, who have sent down the pronunciation. Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra." It is we, Allah is talking, who have sent down the pronunciation, and surely we will guard it. وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. And surely we will guard. And this is why we see now that the Quran is, I mean, the book is preserved in all its verses by means of pronunciation. There are probably few versions of calligraphy or writings or something like this. As for citing it and reciting it, almost one version that is. Okay. Now we come to the other term, al-hadith, the narrative. The narrative is news of global and universal events put together in groups of verses, as well as human legends and tales, whether past or present, particularly the events of the time of the Prophet, which means it's a history, like telling like a tale or a story. And it contains no commands or legal matters and obligations, as in verse 111 of Surah 12. So this part we call the narrative, al-hadith. It's like if God telling us stories. Those stories are to be taken as an example, to consider things and to know, to take a lesson, kind of. In the verse 111, Surah 12, it says, there is in their stories, which means of people of those times, instruction for man with understanding. That's the purpose of telling us this, is to take a lesson. It is not invented narrative, okay? It's true story, it happened. But a confirmation of what went before it and in detail. It's a confirmation of what happened and what went even before it, before now, that is, in detail, which means they are like data, information. Now, the term of the clear book. Clear book is the narrative of historical facts related as information from the past to take a lesson when learning the era of Muhammad. When we are learning, you we should learn from those examples, from those information. Now, the era of Muhammad is in verses 1, 2, 3, Surah 12. It starts by Alif Lam Ra, 3 Arabic letters, but nobody knows what meaning for those letters is. As we mentioned on top, that the Quran is composed of uh, uh, 2 items, the objective laws, and the short verses that nobody can understand yet. So Alif Lam Ra, those are the verses of the clear book. God said those are the verses of the clear book. He didn't say the book. Why? Because clear book is something sure, true. It means like a confirmation. We have sent down in Arabic, so you may reflect. Actually, yes, it was sent down in Arabic. Why? Because the Prophet is Arabic. His people are Arabic. They don't speak other language, or probably they do, but their main language of conversation and understanding is Arabic. That's why. So they may reflect, which means so you can understand it. Because the purpose of the message is the man get the message, understand it. We recount unto you the best of stories by revealing unto you this Quran. So, by revealing the Quran, which means the objective laws of human, of nature, of physics, of, okay? These are narratives, okay, that are not invented. They happen. And in Arabic, so you and your people can understand. Finally, the criterion. Now, the criterion in the Quran, I put it to be the Al-Furqan. Al-Furqan, it means something that divide in the sense, divide and decide between, let's say, a couple of things. But because it has some farthest meaning than just show the right from the wrong, maybe it's better. The criterion is coming to mean exactly this. So is the 10 Commandments, the equivalent in the Quran is the 10 Commandments in Moses' message. And Muhammad, better known as the right path. You know, the 10 Commandments in the message of Muhammad is known as the right path. As we will see now, there's a long verse. I'm not gonna probably read it down, but it's in Al-Araf, I think, Surah 6 or 7, verses 153. Verse 153. So, the right path. Anyone who reads the Quran looking for the right path, he or she will find that the right path is citing like this and this and this and this, the equivalent of the 10 Commandments modified for the message of Muhammad. Okay? So they contain this. The criterion is the right path, and the right path is equivalent as well to the wisdom of Jesus. It's equivalent to 10 Commandments of Moses and equivalent to the wisdom of Jesus. The wisdom of Jesus' message, that is, not Jesus himself. In verses 151, 152 of Surah 6, as I just said, whoever wants to read and make sure and understand and can look at it. So Allah reiterated the taboos that are the Ten Commandments, and closed in verse 153 to say, after citing all those commandments, okay, Allah, in continuing the verse 151, 152, in the verse 153 to say, verily this is my path. So all this, as I said, which are the Ten Commandments, or the equivalent rather, and the wisdom that's in the message of Jesus, all this is my path. إن هذا صراطي مستقيما, straight. So verily this is my path, straight. Follow it, then, and follow no other, that you will deviate. So don't follow anything else because you will deviate. Follow it, and this is really the right path. And everybody knows universally nowadays the Ten Commandments are executed and exercised everywhere on the face of the earth. Of course, there are wrongdoers here and there. They might. That's why there are tribunals and there are justice and so on, and punishment, etc. So these are the terms that I wanted to clarify, that they don't mean one thing. Each term means something, but all together probably are engendered in what I call the whole book, the book, Al-Mus'haf. Thank you.